Welcome again to the New Education Show with Dean Val and Dean Kevin. We're here to talk about education, not the literalized type, but the kind of the real type where you are gain access to awareness, multidimensional awareness, and see more beyond just the one-dimensional world and surface world that we're presented with normally. Okay, so we went to forest schools, nature schools. This, in those schools you have time to be with, in that case, nature, be with the environment. Whereas the schools in the U.S. are indoctrination schools mainly. They're just like teach the kids to be robots in the system, going for money and a job and a career, and really no purpose other than that. Whereas this school is more like, okay, you heard what they're talking about. They want the kids to be happy. They want the kids to be like a full person where they get the chance to play. Music, art, poetry is important. It's not just the career. So they have a fuller access to being a real person. They're not multidimensional yet, but they're still addressing more of the full personal self. And then the nature schools, even more so, they're more into like the survival, what's real with the food, water, air. They're more along those lines because they're in the environment, dealing with it, managing it. But again, these are all comparisons to what could be, which we're presenting, which is like the multidimensional aspect where you have, you're presented the opportunity to look at your dreams, to leave the body, to compare, what one dimensional is to other dimensions, and seeing that you're more than just this personal self. You're multidimensional. Nobody really teaches that, except when you become an adult, and then you start your journey within the spiritual paths and religions, and then you have an opportunity to do that. But as a kid, you're not. So we, in our university and the new educational system, new educational system, will give kids access to maintain their connection with their real awareness, which normally you lose once you become one-dimensional in the normal school system. So we'll just keep that open for kids. So if they want to develop that and to be able to fly in their dreams and to go and access that part of themselves, as well as other parts, multidimensional parts, they will have ability to do that. Because really, we're so much more capable. Milarepa flew in his physical body; he could fly. Telepathy. Without the technology, there's so much more. See, everybody's geared toward technology these days, and that's kind of a trap in a way, because that mind frames you into a certain block, and you don't have access to these other dimensions other than through virtual reality, which is still a trap in a way. But being in the natural world, in the natural environment, hey, without technology, you still have access to all these things. And that's part of our educational system, which we give kids an opportunity to develop. But basically, it starts with the environment. Got to start with the environment, just like helping the person to support it, not start harming it, not get these attitudes about certain things. And that's why I brought in about the Indians too, and Luther Standing Bear, and how he was taught by his people to respect the environment, just take from it what you have, you know, what you need. Other than that, leave it alone, let it be, and just live and be, you know, just be. That's more along the lines of your real awareness, beingness and seeingness. So, Kevin, do you have any comments on that?
Well, I mean, broadly speaking, everything in the simulation is about survival. And so when it comes to any teaching or training of children, I mean, you'd want to give them the tools and the abilities they need to survive in whatever world or simulated version of a planet they find themselves in. And so, and the problem is the way the world, this planet, the lines it's gone along, as it has become very structured, as it has moved away more from the natural environment, as it is more, as to survive in it is more dependent upon your qualifications and your academic abilities, which then puts you in better standing in regards to survival. Unfortunately, long are gone the days when teaching children how to survive in regards to an equilibrium with a natural environment, which is rapidly diminishing, are sort of gone. And so, in a way, yeah, it's good that the children do connect with the natural environment, that they connect with their real awareness, that they become more aware, as is the whole purpose of being in the simulator, is to recognize the ears from all the comparisons from creation. But when it comes to survival in the simulator, the problem is when the world becomes much more industrialized and much more mechanical, to teach children then to survive in a world that is basically a world that is no longer there wouldn't be very advantageous for them. There's no reason why the world can't return, or at least start to gradually be restored to as it once was, because all it would take, as we've seen with a lot of the videos, is that these deserts can be regreened very easily. What are even like wasteland regions can be turned into tropical oases, and all it takes is little time, a little focus and intent to do so. But as the world does become, if it does carry along the lines that it is currently doing, as it becomes more and more mechanized, so will, in order for survival, for greater survivability, so will all individuals have to adapt to a more mechanical orientated world. And in such a world, unfortunately, the ability to survive as it pertains to an equilibrium with a natural environment which may no longer be there will probably not be, as I said, very would probably not put the individual in very good standing. And so, whereas of course, you know, before the so-called modern era, I mean, everything was basically a natural environment and all the indigenous with it, and therefore what they taught their children was all they needed to know as it pertains to survival in relationship to a natural environment and a balance with that. But so really,
They taught, like the Indians taught the kids what supported them, which is the environment, whereas now in the US, they're taught that the government supports them, or technology does, or academia. So it's totally gone away from what really does matter, and to a reliance on something that's not real. You know? And so they're in a pickle because they're not taught, you know, something real and with a real purpose, you know, like have a real purpose too. They're just wandering through aimlessly without any direction. You get out of college or something, people don't know what to do with their lives. So, especially now with everything going on, it's very hard, even harder than before. And it's stressful. There's no place to turn. They're, you know, and that's why we're here, because we give opportunity to give people the potential that they are to to have that opportunity to develop their potential, rather than go into some line of job or career that doesn't make sense and that harms the environment. And you said you had something today too, Kevin.
Yeah, I was going to add as well. And I mean, at the moment, there are still, skills and certain abilities that people can develop, which will, of course, be an aid to survival. I mean, people can go along, just simple professions such as, things like carpentry, for example, things of that nature. I mean, that is still a skill that to teach to individuals would put them in good stead in a world that currently still would require such abilities. But again, as I was saying, it is slowly moving into a world in which everything is mechanized. And so even such things like that, such skills as the ability to build or create will no longer be required either. And so and then ultimately, in order, I mean, even some of the controllers themselves have said, in order for humanity to keep up with the machines which are going to be rapidly taking their jobs, the only way for humans to keep up would be to become robotized themselves. Then they can compete in the job markets. They're already packaging that as this is what you're going to need to do in order to survive into a world it is rapidly turning into. And of course, everyone has to remember this isn't something that has just been thrust upon people. That is almost as though it's something that has been imposed upon them that is completely outside of their control, and therefore they're almost like victims of circumstance, because everything we are experiencing we have decided and agreed to, otherwise we wouldn't be experiencing it. That's how the simulation works. If you find yourself in a very controlled environment and all the specifics that go with that, in your consciousness will be the idea agreements, however they were installed by whatever means they were agreed to, that dictate that you are experiencing exactly what you have decided. And so, but that doesn't then necessarily mean we are doomed to the consciousness as we have decided it up until this point, because of course, if the simulation is a reflection and an effect from the consciousness, and if you change the consciousness, therefore the simulation must change in accordance, then there's no reason why, no matter how bad a planet becomes, how it can't reverse and go the other way. And because this is just one big multi-dimensional computer game, effectively, and the same laws, as if you like, that dictate the mechanics of the computer games that we play apply to this simulation also, in that you simply install the program files, whatever they may be, and then the effects are generated as simulation. And so all you need, so it would start, I mean, again, that is the purpose of this show as an example. It must start with a re-education and a re-acknowledgement of the importance of the natural environment, which is expressing itself through creation and all the life levels. And then with an acknowledgement and an awareness and appreciation of that, then the consciousness will shift by fractions and degrees, more orientated toward that and more detracting from the world as it currently is. And so as consciousness then shifts and individuals begin to operate in ways that make more sense with life and the natural environment that supports them, as they support it instead of being a part of these systems that are in fact destroying it, then so as the consciousness shifts, so must the simulation follow in accordance. And there's no reason why this whole planet cannot be restored to the way it was before. I mean, it's like Duane says, it's only in the last couple of 100 years that it has deteriorated to the polluted situation that it is currently. And if you consider that the planet, as far as we know, has been in a relatively natural environment orientated, has not been in the situation that it is for who knows how many eons. And so in such a short period of time, it became what it is. And in an equally as short period of time, it can be reversed back to its former glory. And although people may think that might be impossible, I mean, there are all sorts of technologies that can be brought to bear, most of which probably humanity aren't even aware of, that are being suppressed and concealed. But as I said, even on some of the videos we saw, I mean, what would seem to be hopeless situations in these desert regions, individuals have gone in and with a little time and care, they have converted them and completely re-greened them and made them into a food forest providing sort of natural environment oases sort of places. And so nothing is irreversible. It's just simply what people decide. And so,
yeah, we think we can give the kids this idea that they can create anything. So why not create something that makes sense with the environment and to reach their full potential. So yeah, even the world and even creation, you can go on into creation, and once you get the idea, the whole of creation can be revamped too to make sense of things. So it's a lot for us to do here.
Yeah, and in regards to simulations, that would then bring me into what I was going to share today. Because obviously, the more information you can put out there in regards to this being a simulator, and the mechanics of it would then be very similar to computer games, the more people are going to be more accepting of it. And so it's good to get various perspectives and evidence of this being indeed a simulator. And so I would draw from the information from this book, another book by David Icke, and this is in fact his most recent book and is called The Answer. And this particular chapter would deal with the simulation and how a lot of mainstream scientists are investigating the very nature of the creation that we find ourselves in and unveiling features and facets of it that do suggest and hint that it is indeed a vast multi-dimensional computer game, and therefore, just like any game, the same sort of rules apply, rules being that simply what you input into a game is then what the game is. And so if there are any rules, so to speak, in a simulator, these are simply ideas that have been agreed to that then make up its construction. And so I should read from this. The following information was sourced from the book The Answer by David Icke, Simulation, Science and Numbers. Another mainstream scientist who has pursued evidence for a simulation is James Gates, an American theoretical physicist who has been professor of physics at the University of Maryland, director of the Center for String and Particle Theory, and served on the Council of Advisors on Science and Technology to President Obama. A Gates-led team discovered computer codes of digital data embedded in the energetic fabric of our reality, which take the form of 1 and 0. The binary system used in computers of on-off electrical charges, which looks so similar to codes of the Matrix in the movies, and the A, C, G, and T codes that make up DNA and also have binary values. These codes and their relationships with each other decide what the physical form looks like. Differences in coding between a human and rat are marginal, yet their form is fundamentally different. DNA codes have digital binary values of A and C equaling 0 and G and T equaling 1. DNA code sequences look like binary number coding, and the numbers on the computer screens in the Matrix movie series depicting the digital basis of the reality simulation. James Gates said they had no idea what digital computer codes were doing in the fabric of our reality, but this can be explained if we are dealing with a simulation. The Gates team also found error-correcting codes or block codes within the energetic fabric of reality. These are mathematical sequences employed in computers that return data to its original state or default settings when something knocks it out of kilter. They would be necessary to hold the simulation together in the face of forces impacting upon it. Gates said they found a set of equations embedded in reality that were indistinguishable from those that drive search engines and browsers. The internet and digital technology in general are actually mimicking the simulation to create a simulation within a simulation and enslave human body-mind in more extreme states of illusion and isolation than even the main simulation itself. One level of our reality, the simulation, is digital, and that the physical world from the universe downwards consists of digital holograms. Numerology reads reality at this level of numbers, and Max Tegmark, a physicist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, said, "The universe can be entirely described by numbers and maths." Tegmark, author of Our Mathematical Universe, says reality is encoded with numbers and mathematics in the same way as computer games, and the physics of our reality and computer games are basically the same. He compares human experience with characters in advanced games. The characters would think, because of the software codes, that they were bumping into real objects, falling in love, and feeling emotions. Eventually, they might study the workings of the game more deeply and realize that everything, as with our reality on one level, was made of pixels. They would see that what they thought was physical was in fact just numbers. Tegmark then relates this to human reality, and we're exactly in this situation in our world. We look around and it doesn't seem that mathematical at all, but everything we see is made out of elementary particles like quarks and electrons. And what properties does an electron have? Does it have a smell, or a color, or a texture? No. We physicists have come up with geeky names for electron properties, like electric charge, or spin, or lepton number, but the electron doesn't care what we call it. The properties are just numbers. Everything these scientists are uncovering is what you would expect to see if we live in some sort of simulation. There is also the ancient concept of divine proportion. which is the term given to mathematical and geometrical sequences found throughout our reality, the natural world, and the human body. Holographic as above, so below, once again. Initiates of the hidden knowledge understood these sequences and gave them names such as phi, pi, golden mean, golden ratio, and golden section. They encoded them into their temples, cathedrals, and important buildings to attract, entangle with particular energies, information, and frequencies to connect them with God or the gods. Artists like the initiate Leonardo da Vinci encoded these proportions or ratios into their paintings. Da Vinci was so ahead of his time because he understood reality by tapping into awareness outside the simulation, and he would have had close associations with secret societies. The number of a golden ratio is 1.6180, etc., which then goes on repeating indefinitely. Golden ratio proportion comes from dividing a line into two parts, so that the longer part divided by the smaller part is also equal to the whole length divided by the longest part. Put simply, it is a sequence that can be found everywhere, and is obviously there by design and not a chance. Another ubiquitous sequence is the Fibonacci number code, which was identified, at least in ancient India, by a mathematician called Virahanka, but gets its name from the 12th, 13th century Italian mathematician Fibonacci, also known as Leonardo of Pisa. The Fibonacci sequence adds the two previous numbers to get the next one, as with 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, and so on. The higher it goes, the closer it gets to the golden ratio. The Fibonacci sequence is encoded in everything, from the human face and body to animals, DNA, seed heads, pine cones, trees, shells, spiral galaxies, hurricanes, and the number of petals in a flower. Then we have fractal patterns encoded in the fabric of reality, and once again, they are everywhere. Fractals are a never-ending pattern that is infinitely complex and self-similar across different scales. The as above, so below characteristics of holograms. Fractal patterns can be found in river networks, mountain ranges, craters, lightning bolts, coastlines, mountain goat horns, trees and branch growth, animal color patterns, pineapples, heart rates, heartbeats, neurons and brains, eyes, respiratory systems, circulatory systems, blood vessels and pulmonary vessels, DNA, geological fault lines, earthquakes, snowflakes, crystals, ocean waves, vegetables, soil pores, and even the rings of Saturn. Fractal holographic patterns are found in binary 1 and 0 on-off electrical charges encoded in our energetic reality that are also found in the DNA receiver transmitter hard drive of the body. A science paper captured the essence of DNA with its heading, DNA is a fractal antenna in electromagnetic fields. DNA is a receiver transmitter of information and is a digital, binary, holographic, and fractal because our experienced reality is digital, binary, holographic, and fractal. American psychology professor David Pincus has said that as above, so below. Repeating fractal patterns have been identified in psychology, behavior, speech patterns, and interpersonal relationships, which begs the question of how much human behavior comes from free will and how much from simply following the simulation program. Fractal principles relate to symmetrical mathematics, which are one shape being exactly like another when you move it, turn it, flip it, or slide it. Symmetrical mathematics are found in everything from the way trees grow to the structure of the human lung. Dmitry Kryukov, a physicist at the University of California, San Diego, was a co-author of a study reported in Nature's Scientific Reports, which suggested that undiscovered and fundamental laws may govern the growth of systems on all levels, from electrical firing between brain cells to the growth of social networks and expansion of galaxies. The holographic principle, yet again. Kryukov said, natural growth dynamics are the same for different real networks, like the internet or the brain or social networks. He added that for a physicist, it's an immediate signal that there is some missing understanding of how nature works. What's missing is the understanding that we are dealing with a holographic simulation. The work of Kryukov and his team was reported by the Huffington Post. When the team compared the universe's history with the growth of social networks and brain circuits, they found all the networks expanded in similar ways. They balanced links between similar nodes with ones that already had many connections. For instance, a cat lover surfing the internet may visit mega sites such as Google or Yahoo, but will also browse cat fancier websites or YouTube kitten videos. In the same way, neighboring brain cells like to connect, but neurons also link to such Google brain cells that are hooked up to loads of other brain cells. The eerie similarity between networks, large and small, is unlikely to be a coincidence, Kryukov said. What are all these recurring mathematical sequences that pervade our reality? I say they are the computer codes of the simulation. I watched a presentation by Donald Hoffman, a professor in the Department of Cognitive Sciences at the University of California, Irvine, in which he described his concept of our experienced reality acting like a computer interface, which I agree that it does. Evolution shaped us with a user interface that hides the truth. Nothing that we see is the truth. The very language of space and time and objects is the wrong language to describe reality. I contend that it was not evolution which shaped this, but manipulation. The computer interface, the equivalent of a computer screen, is the simulation which gives a false sense of reality to hide the fact that it is a simulation. So I'll stop there, I think.
It's very interesting. I was wondering how he found in reality or in our simulator the indicators. Well, it's in the tree stump, you have tree rings and all the astrological stars and the formations of the spirals and all the, it's all around us in nature. So I see how he could see this, and but then again, it's an invisible, unknown part that's a reality, and this is still the simulator. We're kind of in the Truman Show here. The unknown, invisible part is what we're pointing to as a reference, because that's what's real. And to find that or to figure that out, it's a big challenge, but you have to start somewhere. So this is where we come in. We can help people to see, to begin their journey to wake up to what's really real beyond this simulator and other simulators, which are very convincing and very seductive. It's just the way it is. And it seems so real here, but there's something even more real, which most people don't want to face, but it's out. It's there. Just have to see it. And it's a seeingness beyond your imagination seeingness and your visualization seeingness. It's a different type of seeingness where you see what already is. You're not making these things up. It just already is. So you're seeing what already is, and then you're establishing relation to it. How you're going to do that is your choice. How you creatively be with it. This isness. It's a seeingness and a beingness that's beyond the personal self's ability to relate to. So it sounds confusing, but it's really not. It's really very easy. If we can do it, others can do it. Just take the chance to see beyond, sing NUUU, and that's one way to start your journey, to start this off for yourself. And you'll be shown, life will show you if you're sincere. It doesn't deny anybody. It's not like it's secret, really. It's just that your willingness to see it, to decide to see it, and you will. And we're just using words here, but again, you can use telepathy, you can figure it out other ways too. You can, it'll be shown to you in a way that you can understand it. Just take the chance. So that was interesting, Kevin. I never heard that before. This guy figuring this out. And David Icke has that in his book, this section. That's where you got it.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I find, the most interesting part of his books, as he breaks down the simulation and he explains it in computer simulation terms, because as this is a simulation, the analogies with this and the computer games we play, the public indulge in, that the analogies would stack up. And it's a very good way to look at it anyway. If you imagine yourself being the person playing the computer game, then if you can equate the computer game player as the real awareness, and that which you are playing, your computer game character, is your personal created self, and the environment that is in is the simulation it has effected for itself through its consciousness programming. So it's a very good objective way to look at it, as you being the computer operator, your real awareness of your computer holographic created personal self in its simulation. And so rather than being immersed in the experience and thinking the character you have created is you, and also the experience is real, you can see it as just a simulation, and also then you can appreciate better then the purpose of what it must be for is to recognize primarily the operator, which will be your real awareness first, and then to recognize that which the operator, the real awareness, is a part of, which is this isness, which is aside from the simulator that you are animating your personal created self within. So it's a very good way of looking at it, I find, and a good way of explaining it as well.
Works, yeah. It's so cool. It's that people think, well, this isness, what is it? Or there's nothing there, but there's so much there. When you start the process of waking up, there's so much to it. There's so much adventure to it and potential. It's so cool. I mean, it's beyond anything here that we see in the movies or philosophy, religion, spiritual paths, Gnosticism, anything here, Buddhism. It's so much more. These are just dumbed down, basically, references now. We've updated the references to where you need to keep up with life, basically, to see what's going on. But and it can be very interesting and adventuresome, like I say. You have to take the chance. Take the chance, and it'll be there for you. It won't. It recognizes itself, like the old Eckankar term Paul used. The act recognizes itself. So once you're sincere and you want to sincerely wake up, it recognizes that, and it will guide you, give you opportunities to wake up, because it sees that, it sees itself in you, that sincerity, and wants to wake up too. So you're with it. But if you keep on using the old references and the belief systems and all that, it doesn't recognize that. It's like a computer system that doesn't have this, the right whatever software. I don't know. It doesn't recognize itself. But the sincerity is the one. That's the key. Being sincere, sincerely wanting to wake up, and it will respond. You'll see hints, but you have to pay attention. But it'll respond to you. You'll see somebody will say something. You'll see it in a dream. You'll get an inner nudge, intuition. You'll see something, and then step by step, slowly, it's not going to be necessarily a big enlightenment experience, but step by step, you see how you become more aware for yourself. Nobody else can do it for you. But you can do it. It's possible. Just got to take that risk to get out of your personal self, to get out of your own old convictions and self-convinced ideas about things. Thanks, Kevin. It's great, as usual. We sing the NUUU to finish, and that's your connection to something very real. Try it. You'll like it. NUUU, you.
NUUU, you.